6 NFL teams that are winning the offseason so far. This is coming from Stephen Ruiz of The Ringer today. As we focus on all 32 NFL teams as they prepare for the NFL draft, just 3 weeks away. All your Dallas Cowboys draft coverage can be heard right here on 105.3 The Fan beginning at 6 o'clock. 3 weeks from now on Thursday night, your Dallas Cowboys have the number 26 overall pick. We will be on from 6 to 11 with the NFL draft, and then the post-NFL draft show from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Thursday night into Friday morning. So we got you covered all draft weekend long. 3 weeks from today. But Stephen Ruiz comes up with 6 teams that he believes are winning the NFL's offseason so far. Would you like to take a guess at the first team that he has? They come from the NFC North division. Oh, you've seen this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
I was like, how do I play this? Do I try
your look on your face said it all. It's okay.
Okay.
Let's start with Detroit.
That's right.
Notable moves that they've made: Cam Sutton, 3 years, $33 million. Emmanuel Mosley, 1 year, $6 million. CJ Gardner-Johnson, one of the big splash moves on defense, 1 year, $8 million. They signed David Montgomery, a running back, to a $6 million a year deal for 3 years for $18 million. Marvin Jones Jr. back, 1 year, $3 million among them as well. A lot of improvement in their secondary for Detroit.
Yeah, really necessary. When you talk about EPA on drop back EPA per play allowed, they were quite literally the third worst team.
Yeah.
When
really
it came
bad.
to, it was one of their real big weaknesses. So in the ways that their offense kind of figured some things out this past year, the defense has still had some issues. And so they are going to try and affect that through their offseason and really try and contend. Because if you look at the NFC North, that's an open division, right? You look at the Vikings, and when have you ever felt
as soon
great?
as Aaron Rodgers gets out of there.
Right. When have you ever felt great about the Vikings? Not saying that the Vikings are bad outright, but they have not really been a team that instills confidence in you for a little while. And this year, this past year, you saw a very up and down Vikings team. The Chicago Bears really bottomed down. They do have an opportunity to bounce back, but that's not anything guaranteed. And then you have the Lions, who played some pretty decent football and inspired football under their head coach Dan Campbell. Like, I understand how they look around and go, if we invest, if we have the right moves, particularly shoring up this defensive secondary, you can go and contend for a division title and then get yourselves in an opportunity to play in the playoffs and make some noise.
Yeah, Detroit, I think, sees a real opportunity there within that division. Aaron Rodgers will finally get out of the division at some point, and that leaves you with, at minimum, well, I mean, let's think about the quarterbacks in that division. Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, and
Jordan Love.
Why
did that make you do that?
And Jordan Love. Because the Packers simply moving off of Aaron Rodgers because they are sick of him is just wild to me in a quarterback-starved league. That you're like, okay, yeah, we'll just go in with Jordan Love because we're tired of Aaron Rodgers. Okay. All right. Detroit's got a good chance to win this division this upcoming season. Jared Goff, quiet as it's kept, was really good at the end of the year last year for Detroit, and defensively, they had to find a way to improve that secondary, and they did it. What happened?
I started moving forward to our second team, which is the Miami Dolphins.
That's right.
You know what I had entirely forgotten?
What's that?
That they traded for Jalen Ramsey.
Xavier Howard on one side, Jalen Ramsey on the other.
Like, I think you saw. It hit it like it.
Yeah, it's jarring, isn't it?
It was really jarring.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's right.
It's not bad.
It's very scary.
That was their biggest splash so far this offseason, to go with what is a very talented football team. Obviously, we know what they have offensively with Tua Tagovailoa coming back, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. But defensively now, you look at them and you say, this is arguably, with all due respect to Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore, among other corner duos, probably the best in the NFL. You could throw James Bradbury and Darius Slay in there as well from Philadelphia. But Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard, not bad if you're a team, especially in a pass-happy AFC, when you're going to see the likes of Justin Herbert Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, just to name a few, you need a terrific secondary, and they did it by acquiring Jalen Ramsey, who wanted to be in Miami. Shout out to Chris Greer, the GM for Miami, for making yet another terrific move. By the way, underrated move that we will think about in a lot of ways that we think about Dan Quinn.
Okay.
They got Vic Fangio as their new defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and he's kind of the father in some ways of modern or current NFL defense. A lot of NFL teams with this, too high shell or whatever, what have you. A lot of that is, Vic Fangio inspired with the ways that they're going about it. Mm-hmm. In fact, people talked about, remember when the Cowboys lost to the Broncos a couple seasons back? Well, Vic Fangio had the answer.
They got the blueprint.
And so it makes sense to go back to that dude if you want to shore up your defense. That team, again, though, seems to all fall under the idea of, is Tua Tagovailoa going to be consistently there? Because it does seem like he has some level of proneness, if that is indeed a word, to concussion. And that is a very scary situation if you find yourself in another situation where he has a concussion. That's the type of stuff that ends people's sporting careers if you continue to have those. And that's tough from the most important position on your football team.
Another team that Stephen Ruiz has winning the NFL's offseason so far, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, they've made some very interesting moves. Their big splash, signing Jesse Bates III on a 4-year, $64 million deal, stealing him away from Cincinnati to be the anchor of their back end of the secondary. Signed veteran Calais Campbell. They re-signed Chris Lindstrom to a 5-year, $103 million deal to anchor their offensive line. Taylor Heineke there to back up Desmond Ridder on a 2-year, $14 million deal. The question for Atlanta still remains, though, what kind of player are you going to get from quarterback with Desmond Ridder going into another year with Atlanta under Arthur Smith in that offense?
I think the hope that you had to begin with was Desmond Ridder, right? Like, as a prospect, someone that's consistent. Maybe the high end isn't as high, but someone that is consistent. And you want to talk about an open division, at least in this past season, right?
Oh, boy.
The Bucs weren't all that good, but they were the best you had to offer. Now, the sneaking, scaring one, out there, and I wonder if this is going to come up because I didn't look that far ahead. The Carolina Panthers out there, they're having a little bit of fun from top to bottom, but the Saints have not done anything that has really inspired you. The Bucs, I don't anticipate them being particularly good at all, right? If it's, Kyle Trask? Is that who I'm talking about?
As of right now. Actually, Baker Mayfield.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
again, good luck with that.
Correct.
But, yeah, you have an opportunity to do a little something. Is Desmond Ridder, after having a season, to be able to sit and watch and get a little bit of playing time on the back end of that, is he ready to come in and just be a consistent everyday starter, even understanding that there's going to be some bumps, but as long as it stays relatively consistent, you have talented players and on offense that you can get the ball to. When you talk about Drake London, you talk about Kyle Pitts. And then, you mentioned kind of the ways in which they've added to this. This could be an interesting team. And you also don't have a high bar, speaking about the NFC South.
A couple other teams that made this list. Cincinnati, their big splash move, signing Orlando Brown Jr. to a 4-year, $64 million deal to help offensive line protect Joe Burrow. The aforementioned Carolina Panthers also made this list. They've had some splashes. Their obvious biggest splash, trading up to get the number 1 overall pick in this year's NFL draft, while also moving on from DJ Moore, who they traded to the Chicago Bears. But they signed Adam Thielen to a 3-year, $25 million deal. Miles Sanders, good running back, 4 years, $25 million deal.
Very good running back.
Von Bell, 3 years, $22.5 million. Hayden Hurst. They spent a lot of money.
They did.
This offseason. Andy Dalton, 2-year, $10 million deal. You can see that Frank Reich is trying to remake the image of this organization with good veteran players while trying to build a framework around whomever is going to be the new franchise quarterback going forward, whether it's Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, trying to get pieces in place to help that young quarterback be comfortable in his situation, from the backup to reliable receivers in Adam Thielen and Hayden Hurst and a reliable running back in Miles Sanders. I see the plan. I see what Frank Reich's doing in Carolina, and it makes a lot of sense based on where they are as an organization.
But you want to know the additions that obviously the ones you mentioned are important, especially the number 1 overall pick, where you're going to get a quarterback that a lot of people are going to view very highly, whether it's CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, or Anthony Richardson, right?
I see what you did there.
What do you mean? What did I do?
Anthony Richardson.
No, Anthony Richardson has a lot of high-level qualities. It's the reason why he going to get somebody fired, because those things are very alluring. It's just, will those things come together in a way that makes a NFL-caliber quarterback? That's an interesting question to answer. You know who you'd like to try and figure that out? Thomas Brown, their offensive coordinator, who comes from the Los Angeles Rams.
The Rams, yeah.
Right? And then you all talk about on defense. They hired a defensive coordinator, Giro Evero, who was in charge of that really terrifying Broncos defense.
Yep.
Right? Especially even under Vic Fangio. Like, these are the guys that I think are really interesting. They made smart coordinator hires. And we understand in this league, having the talent is nice. Being able to organize it really well can take that to another level. And they have really interesting talents on their coaching staffs as well. So not only are they bringing in talent, they're bringing in smart, modern minds to help shape it. So this could be a really fascinating football team.
What I love about Carolina is the vision. There is a clear plan on what they are trying to do and what they're trying to build. And I can appreciate an organization that has made decisions that are going to a clear path on what they want to accomplish as an organization. Carolina, I think, has done that tremendously this offseason. The other team that's on this list that I think everyone has been intrigued by so far this offseason, the Chicago Bears.
That's right.
Their biggest splash, trading for DJ Moore as they moved on from the number 1 overall pick and signing Tremaine Edmonds to a 4-year, $72 million deal, giving a linebacker a bunch of money.
Yeah, and that's what they had. They had a whole bunch of money, right? Like, they bottomed that thing out intentionally, and they had money to be able to go and make these moves. And they have used the capital that they had when you talk about draft assets to go and add a high-level wide receiver, because they ain't had none of those before. And now they're really fully investing in that quarterback, Justin Fields, to have him be the best that he can be. This is going to be an interesting season again in a division that is not anticipated to be wildly strong, or at least is opened up after, at least what we think is going to happen, which is Aaron Rodgers leading the Packers. And you give yourself an opportunity to compete.